Welcome to the Jaybe Show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this Sunday afternoon. It's October 13th, 2024, and you are watching live. Shout out to all the people who are watching on Rockfin, Rumble, YouTube, and Twitter. I do not know what's going on with Facebook. For some reason, I am having issues with even signing on to my Facebook. Look, it's a Zuckerberg issue. So sorry to everybody who wanted to watch on Facebook, but they're unable to. But just to let you guys know, every single Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you guys can watch the Jaybe Show here live on RBN. You can also see me again on RBN on Thursdays at 5 p.m. for the Savvy and Jaybe Show. And then if you guys would like to, you guys can also go to my channel, my personal channel, that is at Jaybe Font. That's JaybeFaunt on YouTube as well, which I do on every single Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Now, with that being said, if you have not already, did you go ahead and like the stream? Go ahead and do that for me. That also helps us out very much. It really appreciate it. And with that being said, also, don't forget to subscribe, because a lot of times we forget to say that, but that's also important too. Now, if you have not already, you like to get on our email list so that you get those notifications whenever we go live or upload any clips. You guys can go to revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. So you guys have that there. Also, for any email inquiries, or if you guys have any stories or just want to send us some encouraging words, you guys can go to revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com so that you guys can get in direct contact with us. Thank you very much, and good to see all of you here today. Now, let's get into the chat just to say hello to everybody. All right, starting off, we have Hello Barbies says, voting don't change nada in this imperialist nation. Let's start there. No more vote harder brainwashing, please. Okay. That's your opinion. One of the things I will definitely say is what we have always said here on RBN is to do mutual aid, organize, and try to do on the ground outside of electoral politics. And that is the primary thing. I mean, if you want to take a few minutes on a Tuesday in November to cast a ballot for somebody that's not in the empire, then go ahead and do that. But for the most part, that's what it is. So, but thank you very much. Hello, Barbies. CBC voter says, happy Sunday at JB. Canada Thanksgiving. Okay, thank you very much, CBC voter. Good to see you. Luke coming in saying waves and solidarity. Good to see you. We have Chris coming in saying hello, 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 Chris. All right. From the Rumble side, we have Newbie of Death saying, what is that, spoons or microphones? I don't know which one, but good to have you. All right. We have Yarp 31415 coming in saying, I think that's the sign for I love you. Love you back. Ashura coming in saying, are you still with the Green Party campaign, JB? Yes, I am. I am still. It will not be done until after November 5th. So yes, I am still the co-press director for the Jill Stein campaign. Sticks and Stones says, hello from Ireland. Good to see. Oh, wow. We got our Irish people up in the chat. Good to see you. Look, thank you guys for Claire Daly and Mick Wallace. Thank you very much for those two, because you guys got some pretty base people over there. So we appreciate it. Robbie Burns says, hey, JB. Hey, Robbie. Good to see you in here. All right, Terry Connolly saying, greeting JB and comrades. Terry, good to see you. Radical Education says, hey, everyone, and hey, JB. Good to see you, Radical Education. I love the thumbnail, the avatar. Very nice indeed. Sticks and Stones, or as they would say in Australia, Sticks and Stones, says, hit the like, you filthy animals. Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. Oh man, now you got me thinking about Home Alone, man. And a Happy New Year. All right. Roger Meadows, good to see you. Says no money today, but good to see you, revolutionary black man, dipped in Rev black shirt tie with tie. You can take the brother out of the jail witness, but he's not the jail witness of the brother. Roger, I'm gonna get you for that one. I'm gonna get you for that one. I don't know what, and I don't know when, but I'm gonna think of something. I'm gonna think, and it's gonna be corny as hell. Watch, it's gonna be goofy and corny, and I'm gonna get you with it, and you're gonna be like, watch, it's gonna happen. All right, we have Devin Watts coming in saying, "Hey Jaybe, check out Prince Shakur. I think he'd be great to do a video with him someday." I know that name. I think I've responded to him before. But yeah, thank you very much, Prince Shakur. I said, also, I hope all is well. Thank you very much for that as well. See, Leprechaun Alley says, I'm so relieved to see you're safe. Yes, I did survive Hurricane Milton. I actually broadcasted Hurricane Milton on my channel as well. If you guys want to take a look at that, I took a few minutes to just share the power of the hurricane. And then I also did a video about the aftermath as well. Corvid Ravenscraft says, forehead kisses to you, friend. Forehead kisses to you as well, Corvid Ravencraft. We have Kalimba Calm giving love. Thank you very much, Kalimba. Mary coming in saying, morning, sharing this live on my pages. Thank you very much, Mary. Good to see you. Thank you very much. David says, right on, JB. Right on, David. Good to see you. Camp Cat says, just read How Green Was My Valley, a classic about capitalism destroying communities. That sounds really interesting. Yeah, it definitely does destroy communities. It destroys communities, and as well as has led to the degradation between human relationships as well. That's something a lot of people don't talk about because we're becoming more isolated. We're becoming more individualistic. So I think that's really important too. Thank you very much for that. Luke Carlos says, let's paint this election green. Johnny DMG says, big ups from Vegas. Hello from Vegas. Good to see you. I hope you get to go see all the shows. Nelson Betancourt is all right. I spoke with him on our monthly Public Banking Institute meeting Friday. Okay, great. Yeah, I need to reach out to him. You see, David says Sinfine is based. Sinfine. I don't remember. I don't know that name. Doesn't sound too familiar, but thank you very much. Good to see you, Myra Page, in here. Let me see. I'm just trying to get to people who I haven't. Roger, I saw on the news talking about hurricane that left an iron dumpster on a goddamn roof. How powerful will those winds? Look, those winds are powerful enough to turn over a tractor trailer. Those winds are powerful. This is why anything above a Cat 3, I don't mess with. We'll have hurricane parties for Cat 1 and Cat 2. Because for us, that's just a storm. But a Cat 3, that's when we start taking it serious. Yep. But yes. Okay. Thank you, David. Sinn Féin is the left political party in Ireland. Unfortunately, right-wing Fianna Fáil is in power. Oh, okay. Thank you very much for that. Now, what are we talking about today? Let's get into it. So we're going to be talking about Israeli Jim Crow. So Ta-Nehisi Coates has been in the news as well as been doing a press tour for his new book. So we're going to be talking about this and the meltdown that happened after his CBS appearance. And really, this just goes to show that Ta-Nehisi Coates, like a lot of us Black people, we bring to light some stuff, and the Zionists particularly, which is a white supremacist ideology, do not like it. So we're going to talk about that. But first, we're going to be getting into criminal speech. We're going to be talking about why Ron DeSantis is there. Ron DeSantis, that man is wrong. So Ron DeSantis has been doing some BS in Florida as of late. So let's put it up there. We have ballot initiatives, right? I talked about this many times on my channel. I actually went over all the ballot initiatives for Florida for 2024. I actually have that in a playlist. So if you guys want to look at all the ballot initiatives and see what they are for Florida, you guys can go to my channel. It's linked in the description down below. Go ahead. But one of the ballot initiatives that is hotly contested this year is Amendment 4. Now, Amendment 4 is a ballot initiative that takes the abortion ban, the 6-week abortion ban, and basically essentially ends it. And it restores the parameters of abortion back to its previous abortion ban levels, meaning it is a abortion ban that goes to that makes an allowance for you to be able to have an abortion when it comes to fetal viability. So when up to fetal viability, basically, which is around 24 weeks, right? You're going to hear a lot of the right wingers, a lot of the conservatives say, well, it's an abortion up to birth. No. Fetal viability is, if you actually do the research, it's up to around 24 weeks. Yeah. So a pregnancy is on average, 47, 48 weeks. So 24 weeks, 48 weeks, it's not exactly the same. So with that being said, Ron DeSantis has been on the attack regarding the free speech and voting rights of Floridians regarding this amendment. So we're going to start here. We're going to go into what he did at first. Then we're going to go into what he's doing now, which is deeply anti-free speech, deeply anti-voter. So we're going to go to my channel really quick. And Ron DeSantis, we're going to start here. Ron DeSantis was actually using state police to threaten Florida voters who'd signed a petition to put Amendment 4 on the ballot. So here we go. So it says police are questioning Florida voters about signing an abortion rights ballot petition. So it says state police are showing up at Florida voters' homes to question them about signing the petition to get an abortion rights amendment on the ballot in November. And a state health care agency has launched a website targeting the ballot initiative with politically charged language. Critics say they're the latest efforts by Florida Republican elected officials to leverage state resources to try to block the abortion rights measure, moves which some Democratic officials argue could violate state laws against voter intimidation. Now, here's the thing. This, right, for now, is against the abortion rights amendment that is set to be passed or voted on this November. All right, so he sent police after essentially voters, right? Which in itself was a controversy. Using state police to intimidate voters to say, did you really sign this? And if you sign this and you're not a registered voter, well, you're basically going to go to jail. Which registered voters were like, I am a registered voter. It is legal for me to do this. And why would you put me in jail for signing something? They say they're trying to prevent election fraud, but really it's, I don't see him going after Amendment 1 or people who are signing petitions for Amendment 2 or petitions for Amendment 5 or 6. I don't see him doing that for those amendments, but particularly Amendment 4, definitely. I can see him doing it for Amendment 3 too, because Ron DeSantis is a buzzkill and a killjoy. But anyways, with that being said, that's what happened, right? But then something else happened. Ron DeSantis decided to lambast criminal charges against TV stations. Why would he do that? Well, there was an ad that was played. What was it? So I want to share this ad with you first, and then we'll get into the preceding article. This is a rocky one. Here's the ad in question that Ron DeSantis is upset over.
I saw the tumor on the MRI. My first thought was, am I going to be able to see my daughter again? The doctors knew if I did not end my pregnancy, I would lose my baby, I would lose my life, and my daughter would lose her mom. Florida has now banned abortion, even in cases like mine. Amendment 4 is going to protect women like me. We have to vote yes. When I saw the...
So that is the ad that Ron DeSantis has essentially had a conniption over, right? So that being said, let's go into this article because this shows how unhinged DeSantis really is. It says Florida health officials threaten television stations for airing abortion ballot campaign ad. Ooh, let's get into it. So it says the Florida Department of Health is threatening local television stations with criminal prosecution if they continue airing an ad in support of an abortion rights ballot initiative. This agency earlier this month sent a cease and desist letters to every television station in the state that aired the ad, warning them that the ads contain false information and violate the state's sanitary nuisance laws. The chair of the Federal Communications Commission said Tuesday that the threats from Florida government officials undermine the First Amendment. The right of broadcasters to speak freely is rooted in the First Amendment. Threats against broadcast stations for airing content that conflicts with the government's views are dangerous and undermine the fundamental principle of free speech. The ballot initiative would enshrine abortion rights into the state constitution and overturn the current ban on abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy. The ad, sponsored by Floridians Protecting Freedom, features a woman named Caroline who was diagnosed with brain cancer during her second pregnancy. Caroline made the decision to have an abortion so that she could receive life-extending cancer treatment. It says, but Florida's Department of Health said that the description of the law is false. The cease and desist letter, first reported by investigative journalist Jason Garcia, said that the ad is dangerous because it could convince pregnant women that they won't be able to have an abortion if their life or health is at risk. And the letter dated October 3rd said that stations may commit second-degree misdemeanor by carrying the ads, subjecting their employees to a 60-day jail sentence. So playing an ad advocating for the choice for an abortion. If you are a TV station, could land your workers in jail for 60 days? Do we believe in free speech or do we not? Everybody talks about, oh, well, the free state of Florida. Is this free? I want you guys to think about this beyond the issue of abortion. This could be applied to whatever policy that the state tries to issue. And if somebody in media debunks it or it doesn't go with their narrative, this gives them the ability to place those of us who may be debunking or giving our opinion in jail for misinformation. And people talk about, oh my God, the Democrats are doing this against people for misinformation. The Republicans are doing it too. This is why we're post-duopoly, because the Republicans do it just like the Democrats. This is why this is such an important issue, because people like me who live in Florida, because guess what? I gave the facts about Amendment 4. Are they going to come after me? Saying that I spread misinformation, when in reality, I gave you the accurate information regarding the amendment. So I would like to, appeal to the conscience of everybody who's listening that you may not agree with abortion at all. Okay. But when it comes to speech, if you are cheering for Ron DeSantis attempting to put TV station personnel, employees in jail for running a TV ad that is for the abortion rights, you're next. Because the moment you say something that the state doesn't like, you're going into jail too. Let's continue. It says, while your company enjoys the right to broadcast political advertisements, that right does not include free reign to disseminate false advertisements, which, if believed, would likely have a detrimental effect on the lives and health of pregnant women in Florida. Health Department General Counsel John Wilson wrote. Here's the thing. I want you guys to also, here's the chamber pot calling the toilet white, because you'll have people like Ron DeSantis that will say, well, they want to be able to have abortions up to birth, which is completely false. That is completely false. I'm going to tell you this right now. If a woman is about to have a baby and she wants to have the baby, there's nobody that I've ever heard of wanting to get rid of the baby or have an abortion up to birth. Number one. Number two, it's not even permissible in most states to go past that point. And number three, if she gets to the point where she's 7-8 months pregnant, she's having the kid. Even if she gives the kid up for adoption, she's having the kid. It doesn't matter, right? No, I don't know of any person, any patient that's having a kid that wants to abort it after 6-7 months. So let's put the BS aside, because the thing is like that's Ron DeSantis spreading misinformation and disinformation. Are we going to be able to arrest him? Rules for thee, but not for me, right? It says the state argued that the current abortion ban has explicit exemptions to preserve the life and health of the pregnant woman. If they are led to believe that such a treatment is unavailable under Florida law, quote, such women could foreseeably travel outside of the state to seek emergency medical care from unlicensed providers in Florida, or not seek emergency medical care at all. Hold up. Wait. This is the most classist shit I have ever read. Such women could foreseeably travel outside the state. Not everybody has the means to be able to travel outside the state. First of all, let's be real. Okay? And also, what state are we going to go to? Because what if Georgia has the same abortion ban? That means we will have to go up to Tennessee, right? What if Tennessee has that same abortion ban? You got to go up to Ohio, right? It's crazy. We have to go to Illinois. What? Are you kidding me right now? Does anybody really have those type of means? First of all. Second of all, it says seek emergency medical care from an unlicensed provider. So if their life is at risk, going to put their life even more at risk for somebody who is not certified to give medical care. You know how many women died in back alley abortions? So now you're going to recommend them to do back alley abortions so that they put their life in even more risk? And then, or not seek emergency medical care at all. So just die. Or just be harmed. That's essentially what Florida is basically saying. Oh my gosh. Anywho, let's continue. It says in response to TV attorneys for Florida Protecting Freedom sent the TV station an October 4th letter demanding the ad keep running. They say this is not just an unfounded request, it is unconstitutional state action. The letter is a textbook example of government coercion that violates the First Amendment. The department cannot criminalize media outlets running political advertisements with which it disagrees. Also, by the way, if you're going to be able to do this for political advertisements, what about the advertisements that are either false, completely false, or they're misleading when it comes to political ads against your opponents? What about those? Where's the line? See that? See what I mean? See where I'm going with this? Where's the line? In addition, the attorney said the ad was correct. Says the department may or may not honestly believe that its restrictions on reproductive health care are sufficient to protect women's health. But that is not a lived experience of pregnant patients and doctors in states with abortion bans like Florida. None of the ads have been taken down to date, according to public FCC records. The letters represent a further escalation from the administration of Governor Ron DeSantis, which has already utilized taxpayer money to fight against the amendment. A state-run website launched last month by the Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration attacked the amendment. In addition, reporting from Florida outlets found that administration standalone election police, we have election police here in Florida, had shown up at some voters' homes to question them about the validity of their signatures on ballot petitions. Last month, Florida health officials warned physicians that regulatory action will be taken against any providers who don't offer abortions at any stage in pregnancy to save the life and health of the mother. But doctors in states with abortion bans across the country say that the law contains too much uncertainty and don't protect them if they need to perform an abortion. In Florida, emergency abortions can only be performed after 2 different physicians certify in writing that the procedure is necessary according to their reasonable medical judgment to save the pregnant woman's life or to avert serious risk of substantial and irreversible physical impairment of a major bodily function. Essentially meaning that if you are told your life is under threat and you need to get an abortion, then you have to get a second opinion by law. And both of those opinions have to be written in order for the state not to arrest them or to put you in prison. That is the law. See why we're trying to pass Amendment 4? Says as a result, stories about pregnant patients in medical distress being turned away from hospitals or being told to wait in a parking lot until their lives are in danger are becoming common. That is what it's about. And Ron DeSantis wants to keep people from knowing about the dangers of having this abortion ban. And also, this sets a dangerous precedent for any type of critique of policy that may be done by the state. And so then they can always come after you and say, well, that's misinformation according to us. And so therefore, you're going to face criminal charges. So let's go into this because there has been further development. So this is out of Orlando Sentinel. Florida's threat of criminal charges against TV stations blasted as unconstitutional. All right. Out of Tallahassee, Florida's threat of criminal charges against local TV stations running ads supporting the state's abortion amendment is unconstitutional. The head of the Federal Communications Commission has said. It is said that the right of broadcasters to speak freely is rooted in the First Amendment. The threats against broadcasting stations for airing content that conflicts with the government's views are dangerous and undermine the fundamental principle of free speech. The Florida Department of Health General's Counsel, John Wilson, sent a letter to local TV stations last week demanding to remove the ads within 24 hours or the department would seek criminal charges for spreading lies about Florida's 6-week abortion ban. The letters from Wilson to stations in Tampa, Gainesville, Sarasota, Panama City, and others were first reported by the Orlando area investigative journal reporter Jason Garcia in his Seeking Rents Substack. So, as the latest tax by DeSantis administration against Amendment 4, which, if approved by 60% or more of Florida voters, would overturn the 6-week abortion ban he signed into law last year. By the way, what the abortion bans that were put in effect in other red states were actually overturned by ballot initiatives as well. And so Ron DeSantis is actually afraid that if voters overturn it, it's not going to look good for him. And by the way, even Republicans, there are some Republicans that support Amendment 4 as well, because to them, that is a threat to bodily autonomy. You see, here's the thing. The pandemic has changed a lot of people's views about bodily autonomy. And so now a lot of people are going, hey, if you're willing to go against women's bodily autonomy, then some of us men, you're willing to go against ours too. Right? Where's the line? So this is what's going on right now here in Florida. So you see here. So basically, that is what's going on. So the FCC ruled that is unconstitutional that criminal charges can be laid against TV stations for running the ad. And the thing is that ultimately, we cannot allow stuff like this to happen, because if it could be laid at TV stations, then it can also be laid against independent media. In fact, it would probably be easier to lay it against independent media, because many of us do not have the resources or the infrastructure to combat the state for coming after us. So, the fact that the FCC said, no, you can't do this is good. Now, like I said, whether you agree with abortion or disagree with abortion, or you're somewhere in the middle, this is a free speech issue. And this is why you can't start cheering for the suppression of speech of others, because once you start cheering for the suppression of speech of others, your speech is next. And so I hope you guys take this to heart. This is what's happening in Florida. And look, you guys want to know the details about Amendment 4? I laid it out on my channel. You guys go ahead and go there. And so what Ron DeSantis is doing, he is deeply wrong for this. And for anybody who talks about, oh, Ron DeSantis is a free speech guy, no, he's not. He never has been, and he never will be. And for somebody to sit here and to think that Florida is better off with somebody like a Ron DeSantis, you're wrong. Because millions of Floridians are suffering because of his policies. And don't give me that, oh, well, we would do better if we had a Democrat. No, because a lot of times they just stand by and allow the Republicans to do whatever the hell they want. Sometimes they'll stop. Sometimes they'll stop them tacitly. But in reality, you got to leave the two-party system, because of the ratchet effect. Because now we got Ron DeSantis, but guess what? Democrats are going to try to chase Ron DeSantis to the right, and then we're going to get somebody even worse. It's a microcosm of the United States. So, good on the FCC, but this show ain't over until 2026, when Ron DeSantis, his term is over, and we have a new governor running for Florida. Look, 2026, I'm hoping somebody outside the duopoly runs to at least kind of stave off some of the harm done to us citizens. But until then, we got to remain vigilant. Go ahead and like the stream. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. I'd like to get your thoughts on this. What do you guys think about this? I should have put a poll, but it is whatever it is. It's whatever. Let's go into some of the chats. I'm going to start off to see if we have any Rumble rants. Let's examine. Looks like we are good on there. All right. Now, let's go into The Rock. Let me see. We got a rock fin. We got a rock fin. Okay. Oh, yeah. All right. Thank you for this, Roger. He says, yes, GOP supports CBI after screaming bodily autonomy after shot in the arm mandate 4 years ago. They said, oh, this is what the ladies were talking about. Nah, I don't like this. Exactly. Here's the thing. Everybody's like, oh, man, body autonomy, what are you women talking about? And then the next thing you know, it's like, oh, this is what you mean by control of our own bodies. And unfortunately, I think that, it's like, where's the line? Where's the line when it comes to this? And where's the line when it comes to our free speech and what we can and can't say? Like, here's the thing. If you're so afraid of the misinformation and disinformation being put out there by someone who is ideologically against you, especially politically, then this is why you put forth the better argument. And you combat it. That's all you do. Trying to arrest them for putting out the argument against it, which, according to medical personnel, what the woman was saying was factual. Arresting somebody for that's fascistic. So this is why I do not rock with either party. All right, so let's go into this. Okay. Paco's Human says DeSantis is an amazing racist, but worse yet, find the videos of him where he ran Guantanamo Bay. He performs physical abuse on Mideast prisoners. Yeah. He doesn't like to talk about it, but yeah, he actually was also in Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay is basically the Western Hemisphere's Abu Ghraib, essentially. But yeah, and Ron DeSantis was a part of that. Ron DeSantis is a horrible human being. Denise says Dr. Joe Stein will be on the Black Authority podcast tonight at 7 p.m. Central. Be sure to tune in. Yes, I can confirm. Camp Cat says the effing irony that hurts. Yep. It's ironic. Luke Carlos says it's close to where the law was before crazy people felt empowered. Let me see. Luke Carlos says DeSantis is right. That adds a powerful threat to his fascist agenda. Yep, absolutely. Let's see what else. Matt Wolf says, "Do we even have highways or roadways that lead from states to state in the union?" I mean, we do, but I mean, the point is that a lot of people can't afford transportation to be able to do that. This is funny because abortion is just a red flag for other backhanded strategies they're trying to invoke. Why are they? I guess you should mean why are they using vaginas in every election? What is the legit attack on sperm? It is causing all the pregnancy. Like, yo, real talk. Like, this is the whole thing about body autonomy, right? So, if you know what, I'm not even going to get into the whole morality about abortion or not. Look, I don't have ovaries, I don't have a uterus, and I don't have a vagina, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut because the thing is, like, I'm just going to stand by the marginalized and go, look, is this bad for you? You don't like it? This is the reasons why? All right, stand with you. That's it. That's all I'm doing. I'm not even going to give my opinion. Because I'm a dude. What if, you know? Um, Latanya says, thanks for covering Amendment 4. I live in Northwest Florida. Ooh, you're near Tallahassee. You're near DeSantis. I'm so sorry, Latanya. Ooh, Lord. All right. Let me see. The boycott senseis. Look at that cat. That's funny. There's another reason to end the two-party duopoly. Vote third party. I'm voting Green Party for Jill Stein and VP Butch Ware. Thank you very much for that. All right. Wandering Star said, so men should not be drafted and women should not have access and women should have access to abortions. Bodily autonomy is good. I mean, I don't think that men should be drafted, and I think that women should have control over their own bodies. But that's just me. Jacqueline says, I remember Nico House saying at one of his recent videos that the Republicans only manage to get their most conservative policies passed when there's a Democrat in charge, or words to that effect. Well, yeah, true. H2Kill says, JB, if there was free healthcare, there would be more women pregnant. Actually, you know what? This is true. More women, look, and I'm going to expand on what you just said, H2Kill. You want to know why a lot of women aren't getting pregnant anymore? Because we can't afford it. I would like to see if the rise of profits from from the condom industry, the contraceptive industry, I want to see if there's been a rise in profits from them, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I think that there probably is, and it's probably commensurate with the rise of cost of living, because a lot of people are going, look, I ain't having no kids. Nope, not in this economy. I'll put it to you this way. I guarantee you, if we were to have housing for all, housing first, if we were to have a thriving wage, right, where people can actually make enough to live and thrive, and then we had healthcare, either single payer healthcare or a nationalized healthcare system, we would start having more kids in this country. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. Because everybody's like, oh my God, the birth rate's going down. Why do you think that is? It's not because of the abortions. It's because people ain't having people ain't getting pregnant, period. Why? Because we can't afford it. Can't afford to have kids. So, yeah. If you guys want more people to have kids, all right, then let's take corporate control and let's diminish it, or let's get rid of corporate control, right? Let's make housing affordable and give housing for all so that housing is guaranteed as a human right. Let's start giving healthcare for all, and healthcare is guaranteed as a human right. Let's make sure that everybody can afford education so that nobody has to pay off these expensive ass student loans, which keep people in debt as well. If you really want to expand families, then you have to make the environment conducive for families to grow. And also for the kids that need to be adopted, well, there's a lot of us who may not be heterosexual that are willing to adopt, but you guys don't want us to adopt them, though. So guess what? The kids stay in the system. And then on top of that, the kids that are, sorry, I'm going on a rant right now. The kids that are suffering under their own parents, and a lot of times, a lot of people don't talk about this, but there are some parents that they just can't afford to really take care of their kid. The adoption system is shit because a lot of these kids stay in the system and they age out once they turn 18. And so a lot of parents are forced to have to take care of their kids, but they financially just really can't do it. And so, or they're just not ready to be parents. Some people are just not ready to be parents, and some people just shouldn't be parents, but yet they do have kids. And so guess what? They end up having kids, and the kids' lives end up becoming terrible. Why? Because we don't have things like housing for all, healthcare for all, education for all. We don't have these things. And so then they end up being stuck within the system, and they end up suffering too. And let's be real. Let's call a thing a thing. Abortion bans are there to force more humans to be born, for the corporations to have more workers. Ultimately, that's what it's all about. You got to follow the money. Follow the money where it goes. It was never really a religious issue. It was always a corporate issue. Human capital stock. That's what it's about. Because even the Catholic Church used to perform abortions back in the day. It was never really a religious issue. They turned it into a religious issue to make it a moral argument. But in reality, it's really just a corporate argument. But I guarantee you, an egalitarian system, guess what? Everybody's started, and boom, kids reborn. Because you make a conducive environment for more children to be born. So don't give me that BS about, oh, well, you know, abortions are causing us to have less kids. No. This capitalist system prevents kids from being born. Like I said before, and I'll say it again, and sorry for the people who are who are members of RBN, Rome, Sabby, and Nick, but I got to say it like this. Capitalism is the biggest cock blocker of them all. Because we ain't dating no more. We're not developing relationships anymore because guess what? We ain't got no money. We ain't got no houses. We ain't got no homes. We can't get married. Anyway, rant over. Let's get into the next subject. Let's talk about Ta-Nehisi Coates, shall we? We're going to be talking about Israeli Jim Crow. Ta-Nehisi Coates has basically lambasted Israel over something that we Black people, particularly Black Americans, we know all too well. Ta-Nehisi Coates is under fire. And then from that under fire, guess what, baby? Now CBS is melting down. We got to go to back where it started because ultimately, Ta-Nehisi Coates actually wrote a book. And this book has to deal with, a few issues, but one of them touches on the issue of Israel and Palestine. Now, of course, many of us here on RBN, all of us really, we have talked about Israel-Palestine issue. We have talked about the issue of how what's going on in Palestine, we can see it mirror what happened and has continually happening to us Black Americans in this country. This is why there's a solidarity between Black and Palestinians, because we see what they're going through, because we were victims of it. We're continuing still victims of it. It's just like if you have a woman that used to experience domestic violence, used to be beat, and you put her around a bunch of women, she'll be able to point out and tell you, if you put a former domestic violence victim in front of other people who may be victims, they can point out which one's the victim because they know it when they see it. I can tell sometimes there are factors where I can tell somebody may be a dialysis patient because I'm on dialysis. I've been doing it for almost 17 years, so I know. And so when you've been through something, you can tell from your experience who's who. Ta-Nehisi Coates is just laying out what we've all known. And yet, they had a meltdown. So we're going to go where this starts. And we're going to continue on into what's going on. So shout out to Case Study QB for this. And I'm going to try to not pause a lot because this Zionist is just the worst. But that video quality is not that good. Let's go to 720. Okay. Let's go.
Ta-Nehisi, I want to dive into the Israel-Palestine section of the book. It's the largest section of the book. And I have to say, when I read the book, I imagine if I took your name out of it, took away the awards and the acclaim, took the cover off the book, the publishing house goes away, the content of that section would not be out of place in the backpack of an extremist. And so then I found myself wondering, why did...
First of all, how are you going to call Ta-Nehisi Coates an extremist? How are you going to call a Black man an extremist for pointing out the similarities between what Palestinians are going through and what my ancestors have went through? How is that extremist? Do they call Professor Norm Finkelstein an extremist? Do they call Miko Peled an extremist? It's like anybody that got a little bit extra melanin in their skin, and they advocate for Palestinians, oh well, I guess you sound like an extremist. The caucasity of it all is astounding.
That is Ta-Nehisi Coates, who I've known for a long time, read his work for a long time, very talented, smart guy, leave out so much. Why leave out that Israel is surrounded by countries that want to eliminate it? Why leave out that Israel deals with terror groups that want to eliminate it? Why not detail anything of the first and the second intifada, the cafe bombings, the bus bombings, the little kids blown to bits?
Oh my God. Hang on. This dude is, if you didn't steal their land, then you wouldn't be an enemy. If you didn't start attacking all these other countries, then you wouldn't have to worry about it. But the thing is that's what Israel has been doing, attacking these countries. And yet you're like, oh my God, they actually hit us back. That's terrorism. Oh my God, the slaves burnt down my plantation. They're terrorists. This is just like people who, particularly white Cubans, who have migrated from Cuba to the United States and go, oh my God, the revolutionaries, they were horrible to my grandfather and my father, and they stole our property, when in reality, you find out that those were plantations and they were enslaving the black Cubans. So basically, essentially, they're mad because the black Cubans and the Cubans overall actually kicked their grandparents and their parents out because they own plantations. The narrative, the nerve of these people, the nerve. Anyway.
And is it because you just don't believe that Israel in any condition has a right to exist?
Well, I would say the perspective that you just outlined, there is no shortage of that perspective in American media. That's the first thing I would say. I am most concerned always with those who don't have a voice, with those who don't have the ability to talk. I have asked repeatedly in my interviews whether there is a single network, mainstream organization in America with a Palestinian American bureau chief or correspondent who actually has a voice to articulate their part of the world. I've been a reporter for 20 years. The reporters of those who believe more sympathetically about Israel and its right to exist don't have a problem getting their voice out. But what I saw in Palestine, what I saw on the West Bank, what I saw in Haifa in Israel, what I saw in the South Hebron Hills, those were the stories that I have not heard. And those were the stories that I was most occupied with. I wrote a 260-page book. It is not a treatise on the entirety of the conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
But if you were to read this book, you would...
First of all, he's right. The only area where I've ever seen where a Palestinian voice has been amplified was in independent media. But even then, right, you have, for instance, the electronic intifada, where you have Palestinians that are actually speaking about their own history. You have some people on TikTok who are Palestinian, who are speaking about their own Palestinian history. But when it comes to corporate media, you don't have it. Ta-Nehisi Coates actually hit the nail on the head. Where is a Palestinian correspondent or bureau chief that actually can speak to the truth that Palestinians have been living? It does not exist in corporate media. So he's correct there. Let's continue.
Would be left wondering why does any of Israel exist? What a horrific place, committing horrific acts on a daily basis. So I think the question is central and key. If Israel has a right to exist, and if your answer is no, then I guess the question becomes, why do the Palestinians have a right to exist? Why do 20 different Muslim countries have a right to exist? My answer
is that no country in this...
Hold up, wait a minute. Iran was a secular country until the United States got their grubby little hands on it first. And then they essentially teamed up with religious extremists. There's religious extremists in many, many religions. There's religious extremists in Hinduism. There's religious extremists in Christianity. We have religious extremists in Judaism. There's religious extremists in Islam. There's religious extremists in all sectors of religions. And the United States always, always, always teams up religious extremists in each and every single one of those religions. The Americans love Christian extremists because that means that they get to keep the capitalist structure in the way that it is, because they use the religious extremism to bolster capitalism. Americans love Zionism because that's an extremism that they would like to keep up in order to keep essentially a US base in the Middle East. They love Islamic extremists because then they get to use that extremism in order to keep a region destabilized. They love to tackle on and hang on to the perverted versions of these religions, followers of the perverted versions of these religions, so that they can keep destabilized and keep their power. And also, some of these nations that are overwhelmingly majority Muslim, they allow for Judaism. They allow for Christianity. They allow for people to be secular. Let me ask you this. What's the majority religion here in the United States? And how many people, especially conservative, will say, the United States is a Christian country? Is it? It was never meant to be that way. So ultimately, when it comes to this ethno-fascist type of ideology, no. The thing is that Jews have existed in Palestine for hundreds of years. They've been there, living along with the Palestinians. They have had unity and solidarity before 1948. And many Jews and Palestinians, many Jewish people and Palestinians have had solidarity and continue to have solidarity down to this day. It's the Zionists that do not. It's the Zionists that do not want peace. The issue is, look, many Jewish people want a free Palestine. I say a majority of Jewish people probably want a free Palestine. Because if you want to move to Palestine and live among the Palestinians, my guess is they will welcome you. Just don't steal their house, man. Just don't steal their land. But that's the whole issue. A lot of people don't talk about it like that.
World, establishes its ability to exist. Country in this world establishes its ability to exist through rights. Countries establish their ability to exist through force, as America did. And so I think this question of right to Israel does exist. It's a fact. The question of its right is not a question that I would be faced with any other country.
But you write a book that delegitimizes the pillars of Israel. It seems like an effort to topple the whole building of it. So I come back to the question, and it's what I struggled with throughout this book. What is it that so particularly offends you about the existence of a Jewish state that is a Jewish safe place and not any of the other states out there?
There's nothing.
So essentially, he just said the United States is not a safe place for Jewish people. Do you agree with that? So France, Belgium, Russia, Italy, Germany. Well, now, today, you mean to tell me that those are not safe places as well? I know that Judaism also exists in places like Iran. Judaism is also worshipped as well in many other Muslim countries, Muslim majority countries, let's just say. And they're able to practice their religion quite safely, peacefully.
Nothing that offends me about a Jewish state. I am offended by the idea of states built on ethnocracy, no matter where they are.
Muslim included.
I would not want a state where any group of people laid down their citizenship rights based on ethnicity. The country of Israel is a state in which half the population exists on one tier of citizenship, and everybody else that's ruled by Israelis exists on another tier, including Palestinian Israeli citizens. The only people that exist on that first tier are Israeli Jews. Why do we support that?
Yes. Why do we support that? And this is the breakdown. After this, look, CBS had a meltdown because he's literally calling to what happened with us and juxtaposing that with what's going on with Palestinians. So let's go to this as well, because I think it's important. And thank you very much for that clip, case study, QB. Let me see. All right, so just want to make sure. So apparently CBS is now in meltdown mode. So let's get into this right here.
You about this because the Free Press, who you work for, had an incredible story this week over at CBS. Here's a headline. Does CBS News know where Jerusalem is? Do not refer to it as being in Israel, said the network's senior director of standards and practices. And this all stemmed from an interview that Tony DeCopel did of Ta-Nehisi Coates with his new book that is pretty much.
Oh gosh, it's Ta-Nehisi. Jesus Louise.
Pretty open about how he feels about Israel, and it's not good. This is Free Press obtained leaked audio from the editorial call between Adrian Rourke and then Jan Crawford, who is their Supreme Court reporter. Watch.
We have to check our bias and opinions at the door. And that applies to every single one. We are not here to represent any viewpoint. I wish that I had to say, great job, Tony, or, way to not allow a one-sided account on a deeply complex issue be presented on our network, which is a disservice to our viewers.
This has been an incredible story to watch.
So essentially, they're saying that you need to remain unbiased. But the problem is, corporate media has always had a bias. Corporate media has always had a bias towards corporations. And they've always had a bias towards Zionism. And that mask was off in the interview with Ta-Nehisi Coates. And I think it's important to lay that out. And ultimately, I think that it needs to be said that when it comes to issues regarding Palestine, we have to start looking at it from a more objective perspective, and then also see it through the eyes of the victims. It's okay for it to be subjective as long as that subjectivity is accurate and that subjectivity shows as multiple sides as it can. Problem is that it's always skewed through the lens of Zionism. When in reality, if you look at it through the lens of anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism, then you see it for more the fuller picture that it is. Let's hear what this pretentious asshole has to say.
Watch this week and your viewpoint on it.
It's extraordinary. Ta-Nehisi Coates has written one of the most racist books of our era. He's an utter ignoramus, wildly overpraised. He went to what he calls Palestine, which was a literary festival in the West Bank, for 10 days. And for 10 days, with his unbelievable ignorance, he looks at everything through the prism of his own navel. For 10 days, he has the audacity to think that he understands the region. He thinks it's not at all complex, by the way. I think almost everybody in the region would counter that. CBS had one questioner. Everyone else fawns over Ta-Nehisi Coates, completely without reason. But this one interviewer put a couple of difficult questions to him, whether or not the Middle East is actually as simple as this. Why does Ta-Nehisi Coates not realize that why there's a security fence between the West Bank and the rest of Israel is because of the Second Intifada, when places down the road from where I'm sitting at the moment were blown up and dozens of young people were murdered in nightclubs by suicide bombers coming from the West Bank.
Okay. It appears that the great value Simon Cowell has a bias. Great value Simon Cowell basically is saying that Ta-Nehisi Coates doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, even though he actually went there and saw for himself. This is the worst commentary I have ever seen. Oh my goodness. Look, he's clearly not looking at it from a lens of somebody that is marginalized. And perish the thought that a marginalized people and occupied people actually resist their occupation. Perish the thought. But yet he doesn't get it. You see, you got to remember where people like this come from. These are the same people who had come over to this land and enslaved my ancestors. And apparently, us resisting that is savagery. These are the same people that came over to this land, which he represents, and has done atrocities to the indigenous here. This is the same group that have went to India, that have subjected them to atrocious, horrible things, crimes against humanity, and yet he thinks he has room to talk. Oh boy. No. Simon Cowell, no.
Were murdered in nightclubs by suicide bombers coming from the West Bank. He doesn't know that. He just starts talking about the barrier and then how similar it is to Jim Crow South. I mean, it is disgraceful what this man has got away with. And watching most of the American media fawn on him for years has been appalling. But now somebody has the audacity to ask a couple of critical questions of St. Ta-Nehisi, and the network goes into meltdown. He deserves far more questioning than this. He's produced a racist diatribe, and it's the shame of the network that they think it was terrible to even question him about it.
A racist diatribe. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so here's the problem. Look, you can say that he went on to a racist diatribe. You can say that as much as you want, but the thing is like what he's talking about is actually the truth that's on the ground. It's just inconvenient for you. Why does he sound like if Sylvester the Cat was British? Anyway, so that's my whole issue, right? The thing is, Ta-Nehisi Coates is actually talking about experience from what his ancestors, which are my ancestors, have went through, and juxtaposing that what's happened in Palestine. And he can't take it. By the way, he's sounding a lot like Sagar and Jetty right now. If you guys don't know, go ahead and watch Shabby Sab's interview about him. Sagar sounds just like this.
An incredible story to follow about journalism in the state of it today. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for being over there.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the same guy that has said basically he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like I said, if you place somebody who's been in an abusive situation as a survivor and you place them with other people who, if you mix between survivors and non-survivors, the person who is a survivor of abuse would be able to pick out the people who's actually survived abuse. Because typically we can see signals of how that person is. We can see the signals of the trauma, right? Ta-Nehisi Coates, who knows about the Jim Crow South because of what our ancestors go through, he knows about it. And we have seen it personally in our lives, whether it be covert or overt racism. We have seen the microaggressions, the macroaggressions. We have seen it all in our lives. We have actually heard it firsthand from our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents. And you mean to tell me that he doesn't know what he's talking about when he goes over to the West Bank and to Palestine? You tell me he doesn't know what he's talking about? That's victim blaming. Let me go to the original video that actually piqued my interest into talking about this. So this is Ta-Nehisi Coates talking to Ali Velshi. And I want to go through this video. Shout out to Case Study QB for this one. This really just brings home why Black people and Palestinians have a solidarity. Because ultimately, we know what they're going through. Let's get into it.
Joining me now is the New York Times bestselling author Ta-Nehisi Coates. He's the chair of the English department at Howard University. He's a contributing editor for Vanity Fair. He's the author of numerous books, including the very latest, which is titled The Message. Welcome. Thank you. We've been missing each other a little bit over the last couple of weeks. You've had a very interesting rollout to this book in which you have written about things that you have observed and the impact they had on you in South Carolina, in Africa, and then in the Middle East. And that has not all gone over well with everyone, particularly the Middle East part. You observed that you thought that there is a fundamental unfairness with the way Palestinians are treated, and got a lot of pushback. What did you see that triggered pushback? What's the part that you think people are not happy hearing?
Well, for my own sanity and my own mental health, I've been taking, I resolved to take a media fast with the message. So I mostly hear things like secondhand from other people. With that in mind, I just think that two things are really, really hard to accept. One, that a group of people could endure centuries of oppression, genocide, industrialized genocide as the kind of climax of that oppression, and that a group who declare themselves the inheritors of that legacy, and legitimately are the inheritors of that legacy, would then go on and create a system of apartheid, which America, at least in its popular narrative, claims to reject, but in fact is funding. I just think that's like a fundamentally difficult message to accept.
So here's the thing that Ta-Nehisi actually observes. Apartheid, which we typically associate with South Africa, and now with Palestine, especially in the West Bank. Apartheid that we see in these regions is just an Israeli Jim Crow. How bad was Jim Crow for us? Black people. We've heard it from our parents, our grandparents, and our great-grandparents. Some of you Black people maybe have lived through it. And the funny part is, we will condemn what has happened to our people in Jim Crow South. And yet, when we point out the same conditions happening because of what the Israelis are doing, we can't critique that? Ta-Nehisi Coates can't say a damn thing? Yes, he's wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's completely unaware. Like, what? Are you kidding me right now? No, you are unaware of what's really going on because you're in a privileged position because you don't ever have to deal with such discrimination. That dime store, that Dollar Tree, Simon Cowell needs to have several seats because he doesn't know what it's like to be Black in this country or Black in Britain. And for him to sit there and tell a Black man that he doesn't know what he's talking about, no, sit down. Shut your mouth and listen. I am sick and tired of people always coming after us whenever we talk about our trauma and wherever we try to put it in real tangible ways. And then we also identify other people who are going through this trauma. And then you tell us to shut up and sit down. No, you shut up and sit down. We have been hearing and taking your shit for 400 years. Sit the fuck down. I'm sick and tired of it. And you have a Black man telling everybody, Look, they're going through what our grandparents went through. They're going through what essentially a lot of us are still going through in this country. And guess what? They don't want you to hear about it. They don't want us to have solidarity with them because they know that if we start to have more solidarity with them, then guess what happens? The empire starts to end. The apartheid starts to end. The occupation starts to end. This is what it is. This is what they're mad about. This is what they got their tighty whities in a bunch over. Because they want to have their ethnocracy. You know who else wanted an ethnocracy? It was somebody in Germany who had a little itty bitty mustache. That's who wanted an ethnocracy. Are we going to sit here and stand for that? Are we going to sit here and allow this to happen to another marginalized people while it's still happening to us here in the United States? It may not be as overt, but it's definitely still covert. Go ahead, look at the 13th Amendment. Look what it has an exception for. Look at how we still have redlining. Right? Look, there's a 17-year-old kid who is discriminated against because his hair was too long. And so he can't get a proper education in Texas. So when we talk about what we go on here and what the Palestinians are going on over there, and you want us to sit down and shut up about it, oh, we know exactly what time it is. I would love to get Ta-Nehisi Coates on here, by the way. I want to reach out. I know one of his people he mentored. Maybe I should reach out to him.
Went to a few places in the Middle East, and in one of the places you went to, as I have, you had a similar experience in Hebron. And I just want to read from your book where you said the city's most visible feature was its amazing variety of checkpoints. Some of them were just soldiers lingering around, other massive gates with metal turnstiles. As we approached one, I watched two Palestinian school children being stopped by a soldier and directed back down the street from which they had come. When it was our turn, one by one we approached. They checked our passports and allowed us to proceed. These soldiers roam as they feel, stopping and interrogating according to their whim. Later that day, I walked out to buy some goods from a shopkeeper. But before I could get there, a soldier walked out from a checkpoint, blocked my path, and asked me to state my religion. He looked at me skeptically when I told him I did not have one. And he asked for my parents' religion. When I told him they were not religious either, he rolled his eyes and asked about my grandparents. When I told him they were Christian, he allowed me to pass.
Is that right for them to have to go through that? Is that right for them to have to go through that over there? If I were in the West Bank right now and I don't have a religious affiliation, would I be stopped by Israelis and say, well, no, you can't pass because you don't have a religious affiliation? Or I can pass because my mom is a Christian? Because my grandmother were Christians? But they also probably wouldn't allow me to go because my grandfather was Muslim. Yes, he passed when I was really young, but I had a Muslim grandfather. So what would they do with me? What would they do with me, right? Would they allow me to pass, or would they say, no, you can't go, even though I'm American? My grandparents, thankfully, they were not in the Jim Crow South, but they still experienced racism in the North. My family came from Essex County, Virginia. Go ahead, look up the Fauntleroy Plantation. It exists. And so my family had to experience it. And the fact that Ta-Nehisi Coates is seeing it in real life, in real time, he's seeing in real time what our grandparents saw. And people have a problem with it. And people have a problem that we're actually talking about it, that we're actually identifying with people who are suffering. That the fact that we dare to have empathy for other people. I'm sorry, this pisses me off because I can't stand when people wave away us having empathy for others. I can't stand it. It pisses me off. For us dare to have compassion. Openly, yes. Yes, Carlos. Openly evil. That's definitely what it is. Thank you very much for that.
Hebron is that place. If you are Muslim or Palestinian, literally somebody can walk down that road and the Muslim or Palestinian will have to go down another road. And I've seen it and experienced it myself.
Yeah, and it is just
Look, Ali thought she even experienced it. What? So now you have two people in front of you in 4K, not 4K, but in high def, telling you, yeah, it exists. Look, Kim Iverson can tell you that. Right? Anya Parampil can tell you that. Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, all these people who are mostly Jewish that tell you, yeah, apartheid, yeah, it exists there. It's horrible. And we demonize South Africa for having apartheid, but yet we're not gonna do the same. We don't have that same smoke for Israel.
it is the intensification of what the West Bank is, and I would argue what Israeli society is, which is to say segregated. And this runs across the board. And I really, really want to emphasize this because people, for instance, often talk about Palestinian Israeli citizens, but they actually are second-class citizens. They don't have the same marriage rights, for instance, if they fall in love with somebody from the West Bank that, say, a Jewish Israeli has when they fall in love with somebody from wherever. There are whole communities in Israel proper that have the right, by law, I want to emphasize this, by law, to discriminate against Palestinian citizens for reasons of what they call custom or culture. We call that redlining in America.
Right.
But even.
Or what about having laws against interracial marriage? So they have laws against inter-ethnic marriage? What about laws against interracial marriage? You see? You see where it goes? You see why Zionism is a white supremacist ideology?
When redlining wasn't in federal law. And we are supporting this. We are bankrolling this at the very same time that we run around and talk about our great legacy of overcoming segregation, overcoming slavery, and proclaim Martin Luther King as our patron saint.
Let's talk about this concept of the message, this concept about using our words and our language, and the effect that that can have on changing people, both their minds and the way we do things. Because there's a larger message. You use three distinct examples in this book. The Middle East is just one, and at the moment, the most controversial. But what's the point you're making as it relates to journalism, writing, and expressing ideas?
The point is that writing is a tremendous tool of power. And sometimes people use it to liberate themselves, and sometimes people use it to dehumanize other people. And I think the reason why the second half of that book is so difficult to accept is because beneath it is the idea that American culture, American authors, American film, American journalism, American television has been complicit in dehumanizing, otherizing, pushing Palestinians out of the frame of conception, and thus erasing the idea of apartheid because nobody's there.
Right.
You know,
this is exactly what happened to us, right? How many times in written publications, in movies, TV shows, in the news, have we been dehumanized for American audiences? We have been dehumanized like crazy. How many times have the indigenous Americans been dehumanized? And if we see that horrible for ourselves, then why are we willing to accept it for another group of people on the other side of the hemisphere? Is that right? And then they're using our federal dollars in order to blow them up, to dismember, to maim, and kill them. For what? For what? Because they dare resist occupation? No. No. No, 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 no. Our ancestors are turning over in their graves if we side with these malevolent people. Our ancestors are turning their backs on us.
You know, that motto, a land without a people for a people without a land, it actually has a much, much deeper meaning, because although we know that was obviously not true, we can render it as though those people aren't there. And when they are, they're barbarians, they're savages, you know, people who are not worthy of being participants in any sort of civilized conversation.
And when you look at the examples that you've cited, and we can go back to slavery in the United States, we can go back to the Jim Crow era, we go back to apartheid itself. It depends on the dehumanization of the people who are you are oppressing. Because as long as you don't think of them, you were having a great conversation with Trevor Noah the other day, in which when we just talk about the numbers of dead, it doesn't matter, right? These are not real people to you. Right. But once you start showing imagery of families, and once you start talking to the survivors of the dead, or the starving children, or the families of the Israeli hostages, they are people.
This is what happened when George Floyd was murdered. He was humanized. That's what woke people up. The humanization. Seeing a man being on the floor with a white man with his knee on the neck. He was an agent of the state. Knee on the man's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and you saw the life fade from his eyes, and he was crying out to his dead mother. Why did we get mad? Why did we get out into the street? Because we saw a human being suffer. Now, since October 7th, we have seen kids, children dismembered. I have never seen the inside of a skull of a child until this happened. And guess what? That ignited so many of us in order to go, we will not stand for this. And now you have the same people who are dehumanizing these people. And they're mad because we dare use this. We dare use this in conjunction with this and go, that's wrong. We shouldn't have that. This is what it is. And because we recognize what happened with us, we recognize what happened with our ancestors. We think about the Emmett Tills, right? And how he suffered at the hands of occupiers, the descendants of occupiers. And we see them suffering just like we did. The church bombings and the crosses being burned in our front yards. Gunshots into our houses. Molotov cocktails thrown through our windows. We know exactly what it's like. And the fact that we see it with others, and then the fact we actually have empathy for people being buried in the rubble. And that's somehow a problem. That's a problem for some of these Zionists. Absolutely not. I will not be talked out of my empathy, and you shouldn't either.
Lives are should all be equal.
There are two things about this war that is going on right now that I want to emphasize. Israel does not allow reporters into Gaza.
Correct. You have to be escorted, and you have to supply your material.
Yes. Thank you, Ali.
Wait, what is that? Wait, hold up. You have to be escorted into Gaza. You know where else you have to be escorted into? Prison. If you've ever had to visit people in prison, there's only so many things you can bring. Look, you can't even bring your wallet. You have to take your ID out of your wallet, and you have to keep that. Your keys, all that stuff has to be inspected. You have to take off your shoes. Trust me, I visited family members in prison. They have to put you through a metal detector, all that. You have to do this before going into a town where the water, electricity, food, and fuel are all regulated. You know where food and water are typically regulated as well, and electricity? Prisons. This subject got me hot.
Supply your material.
Yes. Thank you, Ali, for clarifying that. And large numbers of the reporters that are there being killed. I don't think that's accidental. I think people understand the need to control the flow of information. I think that is a significant force whenever you want to exercise power. Look, when we had slavery in this country, there was something called the gag rule. That forbid the conversation, around slavery on the House and the Senate floor. And that's because people knew that if you started talking about this stuff, if people, dared to think of Black people and enslaved Black people as human beings, we would have serious problems. The system needs information to be controlled, information to be restricted.
And that,
by the way, another way that information was controlled was our ancestors were never allowed to read and write. So we could not do that as well. Thankfully, my 5th great grandfather, who was born a slave, actually died knowing how to read and write. But control of the information so that you can keep dehumanizing people. So that we don't know, we have to keep thinking, and it's funny, every single time I say anything about in support of Palestinians, I'll get people going, well, they would throw you off a roof because you're gay. And here's the problem. My empathy and my compassion for people is not conditional. Because if that was the case, I should be wishing the same fate that Palestinians are facing on people in Westboro Baptist Church, on many Christians in this country. I should be wishing the same fate upon states like Florida, Louisiana, Georgia, and South Carolina. If that were the case, if I have my compassion with conditions in that way. And this is some of the metrics that people use in order to dehumanize an entire population in order for them to suffer. Blanketing them with stereotypes and overgeneralizations to say, if one's going to be this way, then they all got to be this way.
That's happening right now. In fact, Israel for a long time did allow a lot of voices, and in Israeli media you often get it, but the Al Jazeera offices in Israel proper have been closed by the government. So the information...
And kicked out of the West Bank, right? Out of Ramallah.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you
so much.
Ta-Nehisi.
So I wanted to play that in its entirety. And shout out again the case study. Because people wonder, why do Black people in this country and Palestinians have such solidarity? Because we see what they go through and we know what it's like. And we don't want that for ourselves, and we don't want that for others. And we recognize that it's this capitalist system that keeps this exploitation and harm being done to people in place, really for the benefit of corporations. This is why we fight against the system. This is also why we're post-duopoly. Because who is going to keep this going? Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. They don't care. And let me ask you this. If Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are willing to allow brown people abroad to be exterminated, what will they allow with us Black people here? Or if you're poor or working poor, if they don't have empathy for them over there, they damn sure won't have empathy for you over here. This is why it's important to grow our empathy and compassion, to see ourselves in other people. If that person's different from you, as long as they're not harming other people, if they're different from you, we got to see ourselves in them. And also, if they're resisting occupation, guess what? They have that right. My ancestors resisted occupation. My ancestors resisted. Do I condemn my ancestors? What about Nat Turner? I have no business condemning him. Because without their resistance, I would still be in chains down to this day. So, this is why it's important for us to have solidarity with other groups that are marginalized. Not just Palestinian, but many other different marginalized groups. Because if we don't see ourselves in other people, then when it comes time for people to speak up for us, who's going to be there? Go ahead and give a like. Thank you very much for that. Let's go into the chats and let me check to see if there's a Rumble rant. I got to give a shout out to Ta-Nehisi Coates for going on this press tour and talk about this too, because I think that's really important. All right, so we do have a Rumble rant. Let's go ahead and read that. Thank you very much for Resident Orca says, love the show, Jay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. Yeah, sorry for getting riled up, guys, but this subject just, when people express lack of empathy and compassion, it grinds my gears. Oh my God. You know, you guys don't know how much I want to cuss. I want to cuss so much more, but I got to keep it cute or keep it mute. You know what I'm saying? All right. Let's go back. I'll say Roger. Okay. Roger says, once wives were forced to enter into the workplace because wages stayed suppressed while cost of living went up. Not only did that lead to less children being born, but it led to a healthcare crisis. This happened during the Reagan microwave oven, instant ready-made sodium-based food era because mothers were too tired after a day's work to cook a slow, home-cooked, healthy meal, which took all day to make. This led to the future of now current healthcare crisis that is going on, which led to the explosion of private health insurance companies and direct-to-market advertising of prescription to the public. He continues, which led to our current medical debt, which led to our losing of homes because of medical debt, which led to the current crisis in military recruitment, at least for those kids who wish to serve, but are too unhealthy to serve. Serpent meets and then eats his tail, which is also known as Ouroboros. Reminds you of how all the Zionists want to stop moving to Israel now, and those that are there are leaving, producing opposite effect of what Herzl wanted. Theodor Herzl, he's talking about. So let me tell you how we fix this. First, provide path for worker co-ops to start growing and proliferate. Minimum wage with 15% is enough to pay for a 2-bedroom apartment of fair market value, of fair market rent, using most expensive jurisdiction of state as reference point. Yeah, you're talking about the low-income housing, National Low-Income Housing Coalition numbers. Yeah. 2, pay one parent enough to support a spouse and 4 kids and a dog and cat. Pets are expensive. That's why I ain't got none. While the other spouse stays home to cook slow, healthy, home-cooked meals and to be there when kids come home from school. Yeah. Real talk, like, I'd be a stay-at-home parent. Shoot, I went to culinary school for a reason. I can cook the hell out of some chicken nuggets. Anyway, 3, for single parents, offer remote work so that they can be there for their kids. Number 1 and 2, you can save on transportation and childcare costs. 4, you have government give a stipend of $3,000 a month per child before high school. Oh, yes, I actually think that's a good thing, because raising kids is expensive. Roger continues, says, oh, I forgot to mention, you know what else happened in my Gen X generation, JB? Teenage pregnancy and mischief after high school, because high schoolers came home to an empty home and high schoolers let out at 2 p.m. And your parents ain't got home till 7 p.m. Some teenage couples would cut school and stay home because their parents weren't home. That's why we were called the latchkey generation. Absolutely. Also, there was a lack in teaching sex education in school too. I think that I also say that's also can be part of the fault too. A lot of parents let that down, and then some schools started picking that up. And then sent this. This is what is Generation X is complicated. Okay. I'll put this in the chat explaining Gen X, because a lot of people don't realize Gen X is actually a generation that exists. It's just they're right in between millennials and baby boomers. And he says, I love this show, My So-Called Gen X Life. It brings back memories. For any of you who are curious about the forgotten generation who's always excluded in surveys, polls, and media, a good watch, Jaybe. Thank you very much for that. I think it's also because Gen X is a little bit smaller of a generation as compared to boomers and millennials. I could be wrong, but it feels like it's a smaller population. Thank you very much for the super sticker, James Starks. Appreciate it, from one James to another. Let me see. Let's go into here. Interesting. Zymboruska says, I think the liberals are just taking his book as an excuse to start distancing themselves from Israel, seeing how toxic it is becoming. That is good news, but they are late to the game. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, and you actually reminded me of something I was thinking about. Mark my words, give it about 2-3 years, there's going to be more people who are going to be willing to push for free Palestine than there is even now. Because now it is becoming unpopular to support Zionism. It is going to become even more deeply unpopular because of all the stuff we have seen. And you know what's funny? Back in the day, when the Vietnam War was going on, why was the Vietnam War so unpopular? Because of the images that were coming out. And they were being shown on national TV. And people said, we do not want this war. We do not like this. We do not like seeing people suffer. Empathy is a very powerful thing. Guess what happened? We got this, right? And everybody was broadcasting it on Twitter, Telegram, Instagram, TikTok. We were seeing images of horrible things happening. To now close to 300,000 Palestinians. And you know what? We were like, oh, hell no. You see, if we didn't have those images coming out, a lot of us would probably still believe the Zionist narrative of, oh my goodness, look at what these people did on October 7th. They killed 1,200 people. And so then we had to massacre them. But a picture, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a video is worth 100,000 words. And we saw the video. We saw the images of grown men, fathers, bawling, crying, digging in the rubble for their children, mourning the death of their spouses. I have seen queer Palestinians writing letters to the person that they loved who was killed by Israel. Queer Palestinians. How many disabled Palestinians were murdered? How many Palestinians were turned into disabled Palestinians because of what Israel did? How much trauma exists in that region now because of what they did? How much trauma exists in the Black community because of what was done to us? I recommend you guys go and look up Dr. Joy DeGrew's post-traumatic slave syndrome lecture. That's about 90 minutes lecture. Oh, that's a good one. And then as you're listening to her, I want you to think about what the Palestinians are going through. Let me see. Benjamin says it amazes Zionists that we can see oppression clearly and will call it out. Breakup Google says there's definitely an agenda out there that wants to silence this guy Coates. Yep. Because he was, a lot of what he said reflected, what a lot of liberals are willing to hear. Like, for instance, he talks about reparations. He talks about race in America, which a lot of liberals will say, oh, yeah, we're good with that. But then the moment he actually criticizes Zionism, Israel, then that's when it's go, whoa, when it comes to actual tangible things. And so now you have a lot of conservatives that are getting real pissed off and mad at him, particularly people like Sagar and Jetty that said basically the same thing as the great value Simon Cowell said. I don't know his name, and I don't really care to learn his name. And so they look at Ta-Nehisi Coates and go, because he dared speak about the plight of Black America, apparently that's a sin to speak about what what has happened to us. And as far as white supremacy has done, what Jim Crow and black codes and redlining and mass incarceration have done, apparently we can't talk about it. And the fact that we blend it with what's going on with Palestinians is a step too far. DC said Louis C.K. had a great bit. You can have a white guy go to Africa and be like, look, all these minorities, I'm the only majority here. It's true. Oh my goodness. Let me see. Annie Shaw said, JB, your talk on one of the programs about the Balfour Declaration was very important. Shows it goes even further back than 1917. Yep. It did not start on October 7, 2023. Y'all go back to the early 1900s in order. In fact, the late 1800s to get the real story about Israel. Hang on. Jamie said millennials were supposed to come after Gen Y, but most of Gen Y was taken over by millennials. Millennials are Gen Y. Before we were called millennials, we were called Gen Y. It's supposed to be X, Y, Z. But instead, we're called by our nickname. But we are still Gen Y. So people like Roger is Gen X, right? Then you have people like me who are Gen Y. Then Gen Z, or what we call Zoomers, and now you have, it's going over to now, it's now going to be Alpha, then Gen Beta, Gen Kappa, Gen Delta. That's basically how it's going to go now. Did RBN ever respond to Ben Burgess' slander? Yeah, Nick responded. So anyway, so I'm gonna get going. But look, just keep your empathy, man. Do not let people talk you out of your empathy, and continue to see yourself and other people, especially those who are marginalized. Look, we may not necessarily agree with certain lifestyles of other people, but the thing is, like, if you see the humanity in somebody and they're not harming others, we have to have that compassion. And ultimately, that compassion has to extend out to the type of system that we want for ourselves and others. That means an egalitarian, equal, and equitable system. And look, I think this also means you having more interactions in your community with people who may be marginalized. You don't know any trans people? Get to know some. You don't know any Arabs? Get to know some. Don't know any Black Americans? Get to know some. Don't know that many Black people. Get to know some. Don't know that many immigrants. Get to know some. You know what I'm saying? If you're a dude and don't know that many women, well, you may have to start developing actual friendships. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times we have to start to get to know other people and humanize them and realize their humanity, so that there's more of a bond. Because we're better together than we are apart. Anywho, with that being said, of course, this week on my channel, I will be, let me just make sure, let me make sure on the calendar that I'm accurate on who I will be having on. What's today? Oh, today's 13th. Yes. So this Tuesday on the 15th on my channel, Lee Camp will be joining me. So that's going to be a great conversation. I can't wait to go into that with him. We will also, I'll also be talking about news stories as well. So that's going to be a great conversation. And please make sure to tune in to what Nick has going on this week here on RBN, as well as I think Sabby's off today. I think she was on last. Yeah, she was on last week. I remember because I was frying up some chicken last week and I was listening to her. So she's off today. So be sure to tune into her on Tuesday evening. So with that being said, going to head on out. Just going to do one last check on Rockfin, one last check on Rumble for Rumble Rants. Let me see. Yep, we are good. Ooh, Pulling the Strings said Israel versus Palestine is like an abused child striking their abusive adoptive parent and the world standing back while the parent gets to kick the living shit out of the child for daring to strike back. Ooh, Pulling the Strings. Ooh, you pulled my strings. That was a good point. Appreciate it. Anywho. Hey, Jaybe is watching you breaking the Sabbath because you're working, asking for me and my husband. Look, like Confucius said, if you do what you love, you never have to work another day in your life. So take it like that, I guess. But thank you very much. All right. So shout out to all the patrons on Patreon. Thank you very much. Shout out to all you guys. You guys make this work and happen. You guys make this channel possible. So thank you very much, everybody. Look, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. And how do you leave the world better than you found it? You start to humanize different groups, marginalized, and you actually recognize and see yourself in them. That's also really important. This is why we talk about organizing and getting out on the streets and helping your neighbors and being with your neighbors, because that's what's going to save us. I love you guys for watching. Mwah! Forehead kisses. Shout out to the patrons. You guys have yourself a great day. I'll catch you on the next one. See you Tuesday on my channel.